There's something about housing in New York City that's so visceral,
Yeah.
and this gets right at it.
Yeah, I mean, everything about housing in New York is a total mess, and it's always chaotic. And I think in that sense, it's not too surprising that Airbnb's biggest battle has broken out here. Of course, it's a little awkward for the company since it's happening right here in Wall Street's backyard at a time when, they're presumably preparing for an IPO sometime in the near future.
How so? I mean, does this get to the fundamental value proposition of Airbnb?
Yeah, totally. I think it's going to be awkward when they have to, put in their prospectus their risk factors, when they have to say, well, one risk is that the whole thing might be somewhat illegal in our biggest market.
That's right. Risk factors of an illegal business, right. All of them.
Yeah. And I think, what they're trying to do here is I thought it was interesting, one of their head of their public policy, he was based in Washington, D.C., and as this fight has materialized in New York, they've shifted him up to New York City. And this is really where the fight is being waged. And I think it's going to be tricky. I think they would like to have everyone believe that it's sort of similar to the Uber fight, and that it's really that most of their, the pushback in New York has been coming from incumbent competitors. And what I found fascinating about researching the story is actually it's not really the case that it's the hotel industry that's their primary antagonist. It's really people in the real estate industry. It's the building owners, it's the landlords, it's the managers that are really upset about this.
New York has as long a history as any country in America of the abuse of landlords and the abuse of slumlords, and so many laws written around that, also not just to protect people renting and people who don't have the means to sue all the time, but also to protect sort of the nature of a community, that a community would have people of different incomes, that you can have artists living next to people in finance, so communities keep their color.
Right.
Is there a notion that the fundamental laws of how rent and rent control works in New York City might change to accommodate Airbnb?
Well, that's their hope, is what their primary goal in New York at this point is to amend a 2010 law that basically prohibits people from renting out their apartments or homes for less than 30 days unless they're there. And if Airbnb has their way, they'd like to amend it so basically people could do that for less than 30 days if it's their primary or secondary residence. And they have two bills in Albany right now that would essentially amend the law in their favor. But there's a lot of people that oppose that amendment. And primarily, I think a lot of the issue comes down to the fact that, Airbnb has been so good about establishing trust between the guests and the hosts. I mean, when Airbnb launched, it's important to remember, now it's such a success, but it used to be, people were like, oh, it's crazy. No one's going to use that because who would trust a stranger to come living in their house? And the system has been very effective about letting, users and hosts review each other. And part of the problem, I think, is that the landlords and the building owners, the co-op boards, the condo boards don't have any say in that system.